Hey, Journey Church. Thanks so much for joining us every day this week as we journey to Easter. We're putting together this content to really bless your life and prepare our hearts as we get ready to celebrate Easter this coming weekend with Easter Online at Journey Church. We want to make this content available to you to bless your life, but we'd ask that you would share it so that it blesses others and those in your sphere of influence. Also, head over to JRNYchurch.com/Easter. You'll find all our Easter information there, as well as some great graphics that you could post and share online as well. Just because we're not going to be able to meet in this space on Easter doesn't mean we're not going to have an incredible Easter experience for you and your family. So make sure you're a part of that and inviting others to be a part of that as well. Right now, we're going to step into Journey on Replay with a message entitled Fear Itself. It's not about fearing less, but trusting God more. So now we hope you enjoy that, and we'll see you throughout the week here at Journey to Easter, leading up to our great online Easter experience.
Hi, my name is Brian Johnson. I am your Beach Park campus pastor.
I'm Levi Kettleson, and I'm your Burlington campus pastor, and this is the Fear Box Challenge.
Oh, my friend, I love you.
You get to stick both hands in there. I think that's what they told us.
All right. Sweet mother. And slowly. What is it? Whoa, what is that? What is that? I'm about to resign. What is this? Man! Y'all crazy.
I hate this. Do I have to? I'm a chicken.
It has to stop moving. Hold on. Go for it.
I touched it.
Oh.
I touched it.
Oh, that is so bogus.
Whoever's idea this was. What is that? No! Oh! I hate reptiles.
Oh my gosh.
I hate them.
All right, bro. Ready? Oh, snap. No, you can't do that. You can't do that.
I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is.
Now it's agitated. Whoa, what is that?
We both touched it, so we can look,
touched
right?
it. Yeah.
All right, let's.
You guys. Where should we?
Lower. It's always lower, isn't it?
Oh, what is that?
Did you touch it?
Yeah, I touched it a little bit. Come on. All right. Let's just do it. What is that?
Oh, man. I'm glad I didn't get the snake. That was bad. I'm Pastor Levi.
I'm Pastor Brian.
And we took the Fear Box Challenge.
You don't get this stuff at the Methodist church, you know what I'm saying? So, please pray for our campuses, would you? So we are starting, and that was a blast. We were starting a series today called Counting Sheep. I think if we did a poll in the room, we'd probably get 100% on this one of the number of people who have lie awake at night at some point just thinking about whatever that was troubling you, or you were counting the dots in the ceiling, or you were counting sheep, but the things that have kept you awake at night. And so over these next 4 weeks, we're going to talk about our fears. If you search Google for the most searched items of 2017, excuse me, you're gonna see some of these things that were the most searched items. Flood victims, which I think we all get that from the tragic year we had this past year. Refugees, immigration was searched. Why am I so depressed? Was a question that was most often searched. Mass shootings, missiles in North Korea were a most searched item. When is the world going to end? What happens when I die? Am I going to go to heaven? What do I do? What to do when you hate yourself? Was one of the most searched items on Google this year. Those are things that define things that keep us up at night, things that cause us to count sheep, that are our greatest concerns and our greatest fears: the fear of danger, the fear of threat, the fear of loss, the fear of abandonment, the fear of failure, the fear of rubber sharks, and the like. President Franklin Roosevelt made a famous statement that's still known today in 1933. He said, the only thing that we have to fear is, the only thing we have to fear is fear. And there's something very biblical about that response, because Paul says in 2 Timothy that the Spirit that God gave us does not make us afraid. His Spirit is a source of power, and His Spirit is a source of love, and His Spirit is a source of self-control. And as I look back on my own personal journey, the singular thing probably caused for me losing ground, or for me giving up ground where I should have taken ground, has been fear. Sometimes that's been the fear of failure. Sometimes that's been the fear of rejection. Sometimes that's been the fear of success. And at times, fear has messed with my God-given vision. That's what fear does. So when I was in my late 30s, my eye doctor told me that, Kevin, just so you know, very typically when people turn 40, their vision, begins to, it starts to happen. So I'm just telling you, thanks for the encouragement, Doc. But so when I was 39 and 364 days old, I could see fine. And the morning I woke up on my 40th birthday, I was like bumping into stuff that I didn't even know was there. That's a little bit of an exaggeration, but something happened to me at the age of 40, and that fear is like that. Fear is a visual impairment, because it makes you see things inaccurately. Fear is disorienting. There are all kinds of things that we fear, things that you feared as a child that you no longer fear so much. For me, out of an incident when I was single digits, I'm not really sure, 7 years old, 8 years old, can't quite remember, but I was with my grandfather on a river in a boat, kind of a rowboat kind of thing. And as far as I can remember, it's the only time that I was ever with my grandfather in this kind of way. But we were on a boat rowing down this river, and ahead of us there was this very big log that I saw, and the boat hit the log, and the boat kind of went like that, and we kind of went like that. And since that moment, for a while, I had a fear of water in that way. Not a fear of swimming or a fear of taking a shower or anything like that, but a fear in that setting. So if you fast forward that decades, just this past fall, I was on a trip with some of our team, and we were up north, and we were at a retreat. It was just the guys. And so we decided that we would pause for a minute. God was working on me during that retreat, not only to address my fears, but address my pride. And so as I unpacked my stuff that first night, my clothes and my bags and all that, I couldn't find my toiletry bag. I thought maybe I left it out in the car, so I went back to the car, and for sure it wasn't there, and I said, it's got to be here. And I got everything unpacked, and I couldn't find it anywhere. So I called Jolene, and I said, hey, I can't find my toiletry bag. She said, it's here at the house. It's on the bathroom counter here. You left it. was like, oh. So for the retreat, for the whole, it's like 2.5 days, 2 days. I didn't have toothpaste or toothbrush or contacts or soap or shampoo or anything that you would need to be presentable in front of people. And so the next day, the guys decided that we would go kayaking. Who wants to go kayaking? I said, yeah, let's do that. Sounds like fun. So we got 6 kayaks, and we were just going to float down this lazy river. It's a beautiful day, and it was going to be amazing. And so I had shorts and t-shirt on, and I had my phone, which was my Bible for that. I didn't have a paper Bible. I just had my phone Bible. And there was just these 6 kayaks there, and you could, pick one. So I just picked one. And, there's kayaks are kind of some different shapes and lengths and all that. And the one I picked was, relatively long and very narrow. Are you ahead of me? Because my center of gravity is kind of high as well. And so we're floating down the river, and I'm taking some pictures of nature, and it's just beautiful, and we're just spending time with Jesus, really floating down this river. And then ahead there was some little rapids, not like the Colorado River or anything, but there were some rapids. And my kayak just didn't like those rapids. And so it hit those rocks and just went this way, and I just went all the way in. I went all the way in the water. My phone went in the water and down the river. It was done. And my shoes went in the river and down the river. I didn't see those anymore. And so for the rest of the retreat, I didn't have any shoes either. And so it just kind of, and that happened not once to me and not twice on that ride, but 3 times on that ride. And so now all the guys are getting wet because they're all getting out, helping me with my 200-pound kayak now that's full of water and dumping it out and all of that. And you just really should follow me around in life, and all these things happen to me. And the fears of when I was 8, it's amazing how those just came flooding back to me. And even though God has told us his presence is not compatible with fear, the fact is every single person on this planet at some point struggles with it. It strikes rich people and poor people. It strikes educated people and uneducated people. It strikes men and women and children and elderly folks and married couples and millennials and single folks and all of that. Of the 125 direct commands of Jesus in the scripture, 21 of those 125 have to do with you overcoming your fear. The next most frequent command of Jesus in the gospel is love God and love your neighbor. That is only spoken of 8 times. You have to wrap your brain around that. Because over and over, Jesus encourages us to have courage. And he encourages us to take heart. The single statement that Jesus makes more often than any other statement is, don't be afraid. Jesus takes our fears seriously because he knew that those would be the things that would keep us from living the life that he had called us to live in freedom. So he said it a lot. And if there's a voice in your head telling you that you're the only one who's afraid, or that your fears are greater than the person sitting next to you, or that you are somehow flawed in a way that nobody else in this room is flawed, or that you are messed up and there's no point in trying any longer, listen, that is not the voice of God that you are hearing. God said, it says, the Spirit that God gave us does not make us afraid. And I realized something a few months ago, that people rarely come into my office and request counseling because everything's fine. For some unexplained reason, nobody needs help dealing with positive circumstances. And so in 37 years of ministry, I can count on one hand the number of times that somebody scheduled a meeting with me just to let me know that everything was going grand. None of us have trouble handling life when it's going well. But 100% of us, if we live long enough, will deal with difficulty. We will meet hardship. We will face obstacles. Something will cause us to unravel. And fear will enter the situation. Jesus said to his followers, in this world you will have trouble. Which makes me wonder sometimes why we say that tough times are unbiblical. A lot of people have been through some very hard times in this room. There are some of you who are navigating very hard times as we speak. You don't know the story of all the people sitting around you today. There is hurt and struggle across this room. The number of times that I have had people say to me, I could be successful, PK, if I had a sweet life like you've been able to lead. Really, we should talk. Oprah Winfrey was sexually abused as a young girl. She gave birth to a son when she was 14. That child died. Oprah contemplated suicide. After graduating from college, she got her first job as a TV anchor in Baltimore, Maryland. She was fired, them telling her that she was unfit for TV. I think Oprah overcame that one, don't you? A letter was sent to RSO Records by a Mr. Hewson. Here was their response. Thank you for submitting your tape to RSO Records. We've listened with careful consideration, but feel that your music is not suitable. Mr. Hewson was Paul David Hewson. You know him as Bono. I think Bono did a pretty good job, don't you? All those people, and so many more people, and so many of you have had to overcome fear and rejection in order to do what God has called you to do. Growing up, we learned to deal with that the best way we can. We've all had a place that we went to for safety and for security. For some, when we were children, it was just to go in our room and shut the door, and it was a corner in the dark. It was the closet. It was, we'd get in bed and pull the covers up over our heads. We run to the treehouse out in the backyard. We found a hiding place somewhere that made us safe. The monster might come out of the closet and turn green, and it might bare its fangs, but when you got to your hiding place, everything was good and you could breathe again. Get to the safe place, get to the safe place, get to the safe place. Most of those childhood fears have faded. I don't really fear the water, but they've been replaced by more adult fears. Public failure, losing your job or being unemployed, never meeting the right life partner, being unable to have children, fear of being left or fear of being left out, fear of Jesus might come back too soon before I've had all my fun. So just hours after the resurrection, this is just really hours later. It says in the Gospel of John, the 20th chapter, on the evening of that day, the first day of the week, the doors being locked where the disciples were for fear of the Jews, Jesus came. So he's just been resurrected, but nobody has seen him yet. And it says he came and he stood among them in the locked room, and he said to them, "Peace be with you." And when he had said this, he showed them his hands and his side where the nails had been. And then the disciples were glad when they saw the Lord. And Jesus said to them again, "Peace be with you." They're locked in this upper room. They are trembling in fear for their lives, not because of what happened on Friday when Jesus was crucified on a cross, but because of what happened on Sunday when he rose from the dead. And now there's an empty tomb, and the folks who killed Jesus aren't happy about that, and they assume that his friends have robbed the tomb of his body, and they've stolen it, and so they'll be coming after them now, and they're scared. So they're in this room with the door locked, and Jesus walks right through the wall into the room. He comes into where they are cowering in their safe spot. "Peace be with you," he says. And again, "Peace be with you." I don't know what you fear today. I don't know what's brought you great worry, but I know that you're searching for peace. And I love that Jesus walks through their walls of fear. They have shame. They have abandoned him when he needed them the most, in the hour of his greatest need. And right in the middle of all of that, he walks in on them again. I know what you need the most. You need peace. Here it is. Take it. It's yours. And then Jesus says the most shocking thing possible, given their circumstance and given their fear. He says, "As the Father has sent me, I am sending you." Even though you're full of fear, I'm going to send you out. I'm going to use you, but I can't use you while you're cowering here in fear, while you're locked here. My mission is out there. I'm commissioning you to face your fears and head out. Jesus knew that fear was a thief. And Jesus knew that fear would erode our faith, and Jesus knew that fear would steal our freedom, and he knew that fear would run away with our hope, and he knew that fear would make us obsess about the future. He knew that fear would help us, make us avoid being in community and connecting. He knew that fear would stop us from trusting a mighty God. And that's the key. How do we combat fear? You combat fear with faith. You don't have a fear problem. You've never had a fear problem. You have a faith problem. I don't have a fear problem. I have a faith problem. And I will say something that might sound radical to you. I don't want you to misunderstand me. I don't want you to take it out of context because we're in this series for 4 weeks on fear, but here it is. We will not ask God over these next set of weeks to give us fear-free lives. We will not do that. Because if that's your goal, to have a fear-free life, you'll never have it. God is not a means of fear avoidance. The focus of our lives is not to try to fear less. The focus of our lives is to trust God more. That's what we're after. That's what we need, to trust God more. You don't have a fear problem. You have a faith problem. So how do we do that? What's that look like? So one of my favorite passages in the Bible is Psalm 121. I love this psalm because it perfectly illustrates what it looks like when we have put on glasses that allow us to see past our fears. And it represents this picture of confidence that comes when God is our focus and not our anxieties as our focus. So Psalm 121 says, I lift my eyes to the hills. Where does my help come from? It's something of a rhetorical question. But he tells us what to do to get our fears calmed. In this verse, he says, to get your eyes up. Because it is not a fear issue that you have. It is a faith issue that you have. It's a vision issue. You have the freedom to choose what to put your faith and what to put your focus on right now. You have the freedom to choose that. Right now you do. I can focus, if I want to, right now on my problem. I can focus right now, if I choose to, on the relationship that's going south. I can focus on my financial issue. I can focus on the work stress. I can focus on my children's problems, or I can focus on the thing that is creating unsettledness in my life, or I can get my eyes up and focus on God. Because you don't have a fear issue. You have a faith issue. It's easy to get your focus off God, isn't it? So I'm going to help us over these next few weeks to keep our focus on God and help us to see God better. So we ask you to do this from time to time, and I'm going to ask you to do it again today. You might need it. I'm going to ask you to take your phone out, okay? Don't act like you don't have it, because I know y'all have it. I hear them going off all the time. You know, I'm doing my thing up here, so. Anybody ever heard the word vibrate? Let's try that, okay? So for the next 3 weeks during this series, here's, if you sign up for this, okay? If you sign up for it, I'm going to send you a daily message to help you focus on God during your day. And if you don't like it after day 2, you can just cancel it. No big deal. But it's going to be 3 weeks. It's going to be 21 days of here's what it is. It's simple. It is a biblically based, encouraging one-liner thought. That's all it is. It is a biblically based, encouraging one-liner thought per day that specifically addresses this idea of putting your focus on God and increasing and building our faith. And if you don't care about being encouraged, then that's fine. Just be that way. Okay? So here's how you're gonna get it. There's several ways. You can receive notifications on the app. So if you don't have the app, you can search the app JRNYchurch. You'll find that. It's there. Or you can sign up for a texting service, which is what the phone is about. It's at 81 or 81010 81010. Just send JRNYchurch is what you are texting to that number. You can follow us on Instagram. The wallpapers will be there every day. We'll post a new one. You can screen grab that. Or you can go to the website, at JRNYchurch.com, and you'll find the wallpapers there. Any of those kind of ways you can do that. If we didn't leave it up there for you long enough, information can tell you, remind you of what that is. So, because we need to focus on our eyes on where our help comes from. And where does our help come from? Up. Get your eyes up. Because my help comes from the Lord, who makes heaven and earth. He will not let your foot be moved. He who keeps you will not slumber. This is why we get our eyes up, because he's the maker of it all. And so understand that God is in control, not you. That is so big, because when we become afraid or we become worried, we just automatically shift into self-control mode. And we start trying to fix things you weren't never made to fix. We begin to assume a position in the universe that we do not own. Because I want to trust in me, and you want to trust in you, and everybody wants to trust in themselves, and you want to trust in your finances, and my abilities, and your pedigree, and my achievements, but none of those work. Fear comes in when things don't turn out the way we've been trying so hard to make them turn out. You thought you'd be married by now. I mean, that was the plan. But you find out that you aren't, and now there's this anxiety over that. You thought your career would be here by now, but it's here. And there's some worry over that. You thought you'd have kids by this time, but you don't have, and there's concern about that. You thought the cancer would be gone by now, but it's still here. It isn't turning out the way you thought. Who's in charge? I know the plans I have for you, God says, plans for welfare and not for evil, to give you a future and a hope. It doesn't say, I know the plans you have for you, because I know the plans I have for you, and they are so awesome. So in John 15, Jesus speaks, and he says this about himself: I am the true vine. My Father is the vine dresser. Every branch in me that does not bear fruit, he takes away. And every branch that does bear fruit, he prunes that it may bear more fruit. My Father is the vine dresser. Another way we could say that would be that my Father is the master gardener. I just think that's an interesting way to say that, don't you? That our Father God is the gardener. So God, be the master gardener in my life. What does that mean? That kind of prayer is important, because the most vital thing in your heart and your mind is what you believe about God. And for a lot of people, there are wrong assumptions about who God is and what God is all about. I mean, all the wars and all the sicknesses and all the disasters out there today, all the things that we fear, there can't be a good God. In fact, God must be destructive. In fact, God must be out to hurt people. He's the gardener. He watches over you. He tends to you. That's why we can trust him. That's why you don't ever have to fear. You don't have a fear issue. You have a faith issue. It says in Psalm 121:5, the Lord is your keeper. He's the shade on your right hand. It's bigger than you think if you know who wrote that and where that was written. You know that it was written in the scorching afternoon heat of the Middle East, where there is no shade and where it's 120 degrees. But for there to be a place where there's shade, oh my, that was a relief. And so he compares it to, God, you are a shade on my right hand. He is your hiding place. Jolene, my wife, has a super green thumb. She does a lot of things really well, but we have had some amazing gardens in our house, at our houses over the years, and we have a relatively small one now, mostly with herbs and a few vegetables and not anything compared to what we used to have. But I have seen in our house all these like seed catalogs where all the showing seeds you've never heard of or vegetables you've never heard of, like endive and cardoon and foods you only had nightmares about, quite frankly. There were times that she would work really hard on the soil outside because she knew that the soil was critical to a harvest that would be good. And there were years that she wanted me, or she asked me, could we create a compost out there and in the corner of the yard so she could make all kinds of things that none of the rest of us ever wanted to eat. So the good gardener will do whatever it takes to make the garden bear fruit. And God, who is the master gardener, wants more than anything for you to bear fruit and for you to thrive, wants more than anything for you to live with hope, more than anything for you to be at peace and to move beyond your past. Is he good? Yes. Is he loving? Yes. Is he kind? Yes. Does he care? Yes. Are you one of his kids? Yes. Those questions and answers are super important, because you will live your life in direct relationship to your view of God. And some of us have a very small view of God. But I will tell you, he is all-knowing, and he is all-present, and he is all-powerful, and he is all-wise, and he is all-loving. And that's why we don't need to fear. And that's why we can trust God. We don't have a fear problem. We have a faith problem. Is there anything about your past or about your history that makes you think that God is not in control? Is there anything about what you've walked through so far that makes you think that God is not good? I don't mean, is there anything in your past that you wish hadn't happened? We all know the answer to that. But is there anything in your past that would make you think that God is not good, or that he is not perfectly in control? Because the more spiritually mature that you are, the less certainty that you need. I'm going to say that again. The more spiritually mature you are and become, the less certainty you need. Because usually we think the opposite about that the more mature you are, the more clarity you have about God. That isn't true. The more spiritual you become, the less certainty you need in order to trust him. Because you aren't living by fear. You're living by faith. Your eyes are up. You realize who the one is who's in control of all of this. I don't know if there's any rock climbers in the house. I mean, I have done just a super small amount of that. But rock climbers will talk about how you can get in certain spots on the face of the cliff where you're climbing and you feel really secure. Your feet are both in good spots and your hands are connected to places that makes you feel very safe and very secure. But there are a couple of problems with staying in that secure place. Because even in that spot where you feel fairly safe and secure on the outside of that wall, you're burning energy just staying where you are. It takes some strength to hold on to even that very secure spot that you're in at the moment. The other issue is there's no progress if you stay there. You're going nowhere. If you want to move to the next spot, you have to release the grip that you have on this very secure place in order to get to what's next. And I believe that there are maybe a lot of us who've given up on progressing to where we know that God wants us to go, and we've simply settled for not falling. That's just your life right now. Burning all kinds of energy, spending it, hanging on so tightly to your security that your whole life is pretty much just about not falling. There has to be a moment where you let go of the safety and the security where you are right now and reach out for what God has for you next by faith. Even if you fear it. Maybe it's the title that you have at your work. Maybe it's the dependence that you have on another person or on another thing. Maybe it's all the money you make. That's what you trust in. But whatever it is besides Jesus that makes you feel safe, you will be more secure if you let that thing go and take the hand of a loving God who watches over you and who cares for you and who tends to you. It says, my help comes from the Lord, who made heaven and earth. He will not let your foot be moved. He who keeps you will not slumber. And so you remember that you are not alone. Because God never sleeps, ever. He takes no naps. He is with you all the time. He is watching. You're the watchee. And you need to be watched over, you ornery thing, you. You do. And he knows that. He cares. You're the caree. But to be honest, there have been times that you felt that God wasn't showing up. At times, you felt he didn't care. There were times you wondered if he even knew that you existed. There were times that you became convinced that he was absolutely clueless about what you were walking through. There were times that you were fairly sure that he had left you and your family. And in those moments, there is an urge to run to the safe spot because everything is spinning out of control. The disciples ran to an upper room that was locked. Where's yours? I know where it used to be when you were a kid, but over time we exchange old hiding places for new ones. So where is it now? Now it's a glass of liquor or several glasses. That's where you hide. Now it's a bottle of pills. Now it's a relationship that you know is death for you. But it just gives you the sense of belonging, so you go there. Now it's workaholism, 70, 80 hours a week, trying to prove your worth to yourself and to everybody else. Now it's the depression that you sink into. Everybody has something. Well, let's face it. All those things do give some temporary relief. But the biggest problem with those hiding places is that they will never deliver the long-term peace that you so desperately seek. They'll just be empty, and that's why Jesus was so concerned about his followers up there in that room. The door is locked, but he walks right through the wall into their fears. Peace be with you. And again, peace be with you. And now I have an assignment for you to deal with your fear, and I'm going to send you out from here. And the assignment that God has called you to, it can't be fulfilled until we deal with the fear. It can't be fulfilled from inside your hiding place. God wants to walk through your wall of fear today and say, I have a purpose for you, and I have a plan for you, and I have a future for you, and I have a hope for you, but it starts with peace be with you. And it starts with, I'll put my trust in you. Because peace is not a thing. Peace is a person. Peace is Jesus. Take hold of that. Take hold of him. You, God, are a hiding place for me. You are. You preserve me from trouble. You surround me with deliverance. I will trust in you alone. Nobody else. You don't have a fear problem. You have a faith problem. So do I.
Well, we pray that these moments bless you in so many ways. And just remember that you can always reach out to us on any of our social media platforms or head over to JRNYchurch.com and someone's ready to chat with you about any questions that you might have about Journey Church. We pray that you have an amazing day, and we will look forward to seeing you real soon throughout this week on Journey to Easter.